So, welcome everybody. We are absolutely thrilled to have you all here for our monthly Thriving series. And for those of you who've attended before, you know that every other month we have a fantastic speaker arranged by the leader of the session, our wonderful survivor volunteer, Audrey Carlson. And everyone has to forgive me. I'm so sorry. I have a cold and cough, so I sound a little weird. But luckily, I'm going to be quiet for most of this, so you don't have to endure me. Um, and I'll be turning it over to Audrey momentarily to do the introduction. But I just wanted to say a huge thank you. First of all, to Sheila for joining us. It's such an interesting and important topic, and I'm really excited to learn more. And again, a huge, huge thank you to Audrey for always being the liaison to dynamic, interesting, and relevant speakers. Audrey will give a little recap about what this group is in general and the goal of it, and then we'll jump right into the content. And also just wanted to say welcome and thank you to everyone who's joining us live or watching this recorded in our video library. Really excited to learn with you and just become more educated and empowered over the next hour. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, and hello everybody from Connecticut. And this is an exciting topic, and I just want to preface the topic and how the connections are the key word here. And I want to just share with you how Sheila and I met. It was a little over a year ago. We were in Old Saybrook at our beach house, and Sheila and her husband Sam live one town over in Essex, and they were out walking, and I was walking with a friend. And my friend and I couldn't help but notice that her husband was wearing this hat that had an S and a dash and an X, something like this. And we weren't really sure what street we were on, what it was called. And so I said, let's ask this interesting couple that's coming because I want to know what his hat says. And we thought it was sex or sax or this or that. Well, it's Essex. His hat said Essex. Well, that engaged a wonderful, delightful conversation with the nicest, warmest, most engaging couple we had met in a long time. And that actually initiated and cultivated a wonderful friendship that just continues to grow. And I got to tell you, just meeting Sheila and Sam has brought us a lot of joy. And for that, I'm very grateful. So that being said, I said, Sheila, what do you do? She said, oh, I do some very interesting things. And so we began to talk. And so I'm going to go right into the fact that it's transition to transformation. Life rarely follows a straight path. In fact, many of our most meaningful chapters begin with an unexpected change. Inspired by the insights in life in the transitions by Bruce Feiler, this engaging presentation explores how the turning points in our lives, whether chosen or unexpected, can open the door to growth, renewal, and new possibilities. Bruce Feiler reminds us that it's often not the change itself that breaks us, but our resistance to it. And in this uplifting talk, we're going to look at how embracing life's transitions can lead to transformation. We'll discuss practical ways to navigate major life shifts, including moving or downsizing, and how to recognize and reduce relocation stress syndrome, which is RSS, a common but often overlooked challenge during later life moves. We will also explore the many positive aspects of life in a senior community: connection, freedom from home maintenance, I love it, opportunities for friendship, and the chance to focus on what truly matters. So if you or a loved one are facing a change or simply thinking about the future, this presentation offers reassurance, insight, and a hopeful perspective on the next chapter. Because sometimes the twists and turns in life lead us exactly where we're meant to go. And I believe that to be true. So Sheila's biography, she's a speaker and educator who helps seniors and their families navigate the emotional and logistical
A
challenges.
Mac, I think they call them. I think they call them Macs.
Shari, I guess I just need somebody to mute somebody. I'm not sure. So with a professional background in senior housing design, hands-on experience coordinating moves and researched backed insights into aging and transitions, Sheila offers audiences practical strategies paired with meaningful perspective. So I'm going to let her continue rather than me going on because I'd rather have you listen to Sheila than me. So welcome, Sheila. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you so much. And they say that you meet the people that you're supposed to meet. And that was truly a blessed day when we ran into you and
Yes, yes,
connected
yes,
like
yes.
we did. And all, I just love all the connections that you have that I'm
Yes.
now am able to get to know and benefit from. So thank you very much for having me, and thank everybody that is here and those of you that are going to be listening to this in the future. As Audrey mentioned, I'm currently involved with a company. We do moving and relocation for seniors. It's called Amston Home Transition Solutions. And I've been in the field of moving and designing for my entire career. And it's interesting because even though I've done it, for many decades, I think right now at this stage of my life and in dealing with primarily seniors, it has come to light, that it's quite different as you get older to start new things, to move and to uproot your life. And so I began to become very interested in transitions. And what I learned in my experience with Amston is that just because we downsize someone's home, help them to donate, sell, dispose of all their belongings and create a new life for themselves by moving, the transition is not complete. I used to think that once the furniture was delivered and in place and installed in their new home, that the transition was complete, and that was so wrong. There's another process called transformation that has to occur in order for one to truly recreate their life. So I began become interested in this, and kind of it led me to this wonderful man and book that I'm going to be referring a lot to, and that's Bruce Feiler, who wrote a book, Life is in the Transitions, and it's Mastering Change at Any Age. And I realized that that transitions apply to all of us. So that's how this presentation was born. So again, I work for Amston. We are a premium relocation company, and our mission is to create calm and smooth relocations for seniors and their families, and to provide a personalized support system. We do free estimates and assessments and estimates, and we're basically there to provide service and information to seniors before anyone even has to agree to use us for our services. These are some of the services. I'm not going to focus on all of these, but just to mention, we do downsizing, decluttering, packing, moving. We can unpack people, fully install them into their new home. We have storage abilities. We can do clean outs. If someone is selling their home or someone has passed, we can clean out the entire home. We're problem solvers. If you don't know where to go and what to do next, we can help you work through any problems you have with relocating and moving. We do renovations, home modifications, and our biggest claim to fame is stress relief. We want to remove the stress as much as possible of the relocation. So that's kind of what we do. But today we're going to talk about transition and change as a normal part of life, and that life rarely follows a straight line, as of course all of us know here. And we'll talk about some of the reasons why that is so. And more often than not, it's often the resistance to change that challenges us. It's not the change itself, but that we resist change. It's human nature. And we're going to talk about embracing transitions and how that can open doors and create new possibilities. Oops, going the wrong way there. Okay, so what is a transition? So the dictionary definition, one of them is a change or shift from one state, subject, place, or shape to another. And so a transition is a change in life. It may involve a new place or a role or a routine, and usually it means something new is beginning. I love this image here because certainly this really represents a good example of a transition where the caterpillar is going on his merry way, and then all of a sudden he may feel a little strange or something starts happening to him that is beyond his control, and he begins the long goodbye of who he was and starts forming into something new. And so we call these middle stages, where the caterpillar becomes a chrysalis, and it probably feels very uncomfortable and different. And we call that the ugly middle, when you're in transition and you're going through these things that you may or may not have asked for. And then, of course, the outcome is something beautiful. When you can't even imagine that you could be anything beautiful again, you can emerge as a butterfly. So this is Bruce Feiler, and he wrote this wonderful book, and I encourage all of you to get this book. It really has changed my perception entirely about life and transitions. And he says, his quote is, "It's not the change that breaks us, it's the resistance to change." He's had a very interesting life, and I could go into his biography, but I think that he should probably tell you himself in his book, but he had a lot of trials and tribulations that kind of led him to write this book and to follow the path that he chose. So he talks about the story of our lives. And if you look through history in the Middle Ages, people believed that life was a staircase. You climb up and then you climb down into a descent and you die. And also the ascension and the descension was pretty quick. They didn't live as long as we do now. But then something happened in the 1970s. There were a lot of different theories by Freud, his 6 stages of psychosexual development, Gail Sheehy's passages, which I'm sure you've heard of, the different years and decades bringing certain challenges and change, the 5 stages of grief by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, Erickson's 8 stages of moral development. And what all of those have in common is they kind of refer to a linear path of these changes that happen at certain ages and then stages. So for the past 150 years, we have been believing that life follows a linear path. So we have this story that we have. Our life story is that we are going to follow a path and continue to go upwards towards our goal. And in fact, the opposite is really true, as Bruce has investigated thoroughly and documented in his studies. And his belief is that linear life is not true. Okay, that life can change suddenly, as we all know. It's not related to age or a specific phase. It can change at any time. And it's not always a straight line leading us to our perceived goal. It unfolds in circles and curves and U-turns. It zigs and zags, and it doesn't always fit the story we have in our mind. It's more like this. We think we're on the straight and narrow path, and then life sends us all of these curves. And there are many reasons for them, right? And sometimes life can throw you monster curveballs. You can enter in one place and go through an elaborate squiggle and then come out in another area entirely. So Bruce Feiler conducted about 1,000 interviews with people. He wanted to hear their stories from 50 states, and he had 6,000 pages of people's life stories, and he called it the Life Story Project. And then he coded the stories, looking for patterns and things to help us during our life. And he made a master list of all the ways that our lives can get redirected. I'm not going to put them all up here on the screen. He lists them in his book, however, and he refers to these changes in our lives as disruptors. He doesn't want to call them stressors or crises or problems. They're simply deviations from our daily lives. And so what he called them is the deck of disruptors, because there were 52 disruptors that he could identify. So like a deck of cards. And they were in 5 categories that can change, that these disruptors can appear. And that is love, identity, beliefs, work, and body, our physical being. So under love, just quickly, getting married, your spouse beginning, ceasing work, divorce, end of a relationship, gaining a new family member, illness of a child. So it goes on and on, death of a close family member, addiction of a loved one. And then under identity, change in your living situation, moving between countries, change in sexual practices, change in gender identity, major change in finances, attempted suicides, okay, victims of crime or imprisonment, those all under identity. And then there are your beliefs, beginning and ending school, adult education, political, social awakening, changes in religious observance, change in community service habits, a collective event, right? War, storm, or protest. Under work, you change your work responsibility, changing jobs, losing jobs, quitting jobs, changing careers. And then finally, body, okay? Accident, personal injury, chronic illnesses, cancer, mental illness, personal addiction, recovery from addiction, weight issues, and changing your personal health habits. So it's a much longer list, but you can see by example of all the different ways that we can be affected in the direction of our lives by these disruptors. So the nonlinear life that he believes in involves many more transitions, and it does not involve ages or stages. It can happen at any time, and sometimes we can initiate it, and sometimes it's brought upon us and forces us to change. And so we've updated our view of the world. We know that chaos and complexity exist in the world, but we haven't updated how we look at our own lives. So this is what I basically told you about the disruptors, right? The different categories, total number of 52. And I'm sure if we thought hard enough, we could probably add some to that from our own lists, right?
Sheila, I don't want to interrupt. There was something in the chat that Marlene wanted you to just slow the slides down.
Oh, I'm
Or,
sorry. Yes.
Marlene, are we okay now?
It just depends. It's just like you see it, she's speaking, and it just keeps going. One or two are fine, but then it just keeps moving, and you can barely get through it. So
Sure. I apologize. I will slow that down.
All right.
thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Yes. So these are some of what we just explained, right? We experience many changes in a lifetime: illness, loss of a loved one, changes in work or retirement, relationships, marriage, divorce, moving to a new home, and of course, aging, which is one that I am exposed to all the time in the work that I do. And aging brings with it a whole list of disruptors, as you can imagine and may have experienced yourself. So when many changes pile up, these disruptors, when they pile up at once, it can, and they're huge ones too, because sometimes we can handle a few disruptors at a time. But when you get many of them at once, or you get something that is so massive, he calls those life quakes. And I just love that term. Sometimes you're served up a life quake that you did not ask for. And when they hit us, it can cause a blunter, more explosive force of change. So they really upend.
That's when we're shaken to our core.
Exactly. And you cannot ignore them. Some disruptors, you can kind of just pass over them and say, okay, I can deal with this. I will make a slight adjustment. But every now and then there's a pow. There is no way that you can ignore that, and you really have to deal with it. They upend your life. They can also be divided into 4 categories right here: voluntary, involuntary, personal, and collective. The voluntary, of course, sometimes we choose to leave a marriage, leave a job, to relocate. Those are things that we initiate. They're still disruptions. You have to make adjustment. And then there are involuntary ones that we mention that are life quakes, that are hit us kind of from left field, did not expect that at all, and did not want that necessarily. Those are involuntary. And there are personal ones. Of course, sometimes there are things that affect others that are life quakes in your life, but then there are personal things, namely your health, usually, or something that directly affects you in a very personal way. And then there are collective things that happen to many people in groups. And of course, there was an involuntary and a collective thing that happened recently in history. Does anybody want to guess what that was? It was involuntary, and it affected everybody. In fact, everybody globally. That was COVID.
That's right.
COVID substantially affected everyone's life in different ways. So, not all disruptors, though, lead to life quakes, and not all disruptors or life quakes are bad. Some of them are just simply events that steer the path of our lives in a direction that can lead to change. And that change can be both exciting and challenging. Bruce defines it, a life quake is a forceful burst of change in our lives that leads to a period of upheaval, transition, and renewal. As I mentioned, it's when several changes happen at once, and these moments can be overwhelming. They shake up our routines and sense of control, but they also lead to growth and renewal. He goes on, more statistics. The average number of disruptors in an adult life is 36, and 1 out of every 10 disruptors becomes a life quake. And the average life quake can last 5 years. And of course, this is different for everyone, but based on his studies and his interviews with people and cataloging everything, this was the average that he came up with. Sometimes there are signature events that reshape our lives in ways we can't imagine and with an intensity that's beyond our control. So, because of all this, because our lives are not linear and we're being hit with transitions all the time, he says that life transitions are a skill we can and must master. We simply must. So, transition versus transformation. We're talking a lot about transition. It's the change we experience on the outside. So, a move, a new routine, things can happen outside of you that cause a transition. Whereas a transformation is the inner growth that can come from that change. It's a new outlook and give you a new outlook, a new meaning, or a renewed purpose. So, just some differences. Transitions are external, and transformation is internal. Only you can transform yourself. So, it's a shift in how we see ourselves or our lives, and it often happens slowly. Okay, some people it can happen faster than others, but generally it's a slower process. It involves growth, which comes from difficult moments, and we may not control the change, but we can control how we respond. So it's the result of mastering transition. That's what transformation is. So fine, we say, well, how do we get there? How do you get to transformation from transition? I love this slide. This is really just speaks to me. I went to Hawaii. I'm sure a lot of you probably went to Hawaii at one time. I was on the big island of Hawaii where they have an active volcano and they've had it for decades. And when you look out over this park that we went to, the volcano park, it was so dramatic and the whole landscape looked like it had been covered with blacktop. And I remember thinking, oh, it's so ugly. It's so devastating. It looks like nothing could ever thrive there. And then out of these cracks in the ground, you would sometimes see this beautiful flower sprouting or a fern. And it was just really encouraging to me. And I thought, wow, after this destruction where you think nothing could ever be beautiful again, life force just bursts through. And I just thought that was a beautiful metaphor. The first thing that Bruce says in recognizing fear, leading to transformation is recognizing fear. Okay, when the fear of changing becomes greater than the fear of leaving or the fear of staying, that's when the transformation can begin. And so a lot of what I'm going to talk about from here on out has to do with transformation when it comes to seniors moving into senior communities, which involves a lot of things. So we can transfer for your own personal use whatever your need to transform is. And a lot of these things still apply. So if we go with the example of a senior who's lived in their home for sometimes 50, 60 years, having seeing themselves decline with aging, needing assistance with their activities of daily life, and can no longer live alone, it's a dramatic transition. So when they have to sometimes consider a transition move to a senior community, there are many fears that crop up for having to uproot their lives and move forward. So these are some of the common fears. Fear and uncertainty of the unknown. What's my life going to be like? They can't envision it. They're leaving a long time home. They worry about their independence, losing their autonomy, the ability to make decisions for themselves. They feel overwhelmed by all the tasks that they have to do to accomplish this move. They worry about missing familiar routines that they have currently. They worry about making the right choice. Is it the right choice to move to a community and to sell my home? They worry about being lonely, missing friends and neighbors, and the fear of dying alone sometimes propels them forward to make this change in spite of all of their fears. So at some point they recognize their fears and they have to move forward. And there are also fears of their adult children, for their parents, for their health and well-being. Then there's the emotional side of moving. Okay, and moving affects more than just the body and your things. As I mentioned before, just because we move someone's things, help them get rid of what they don't need in order to live their best life in their new phase, it doesn't negate the fact that there are a lot of emotions involved. It affects your feelings and thoughts, and feeling stuck is common. Sadness, leaving their home, and of course, the overwhelmed feelings. So at some point, in order to get beyond this, we must come up with a different mindset. Okay, we have to face our fears and then embrace opportunities as to how this can be transformed. And to do that, we have to, instead of seeing change as a loss or an ending, what if it's a new beginning? I had a client, or actually attendee at one of my talks, and she said how she had gone through the downsizing process. And she said a lot of her senior friends say, oh, you're going to this community to die. That's like the last stop. And she says, no, she says, I'm going there to live.
That's right.
And so that's a mindset. And in anything, as all of us know, at some point when you want to move yourself forward and get beyond any kind of tragedy or life quake, that you have to think beyond that and look for the new beginnings. So, and it helps to write them down. What are the opportunities of moving forward? And I could list lots more than this, but basically, if you're moving from a home into a senior community, less home maintenance, more time for yourself rather than doing chores, trying to keep up with your property. You have support when you need it. You have freedom from daily chores. I mean, the list does go on and on. So in any situation, one has to look for the opportunities of how the change could benefit you. These are some more things that senior communities can offer: safety and support, opportunities for connection, social activities and friendship, transportation. Some people say, oh, I don't want to lose my independence. And yet, if you live out in the country and you can no longer drive and you're alone, and perhaps your spouse or partner has passed away, and you have to rely on family members or calling taxis for transportation, well, that's not very independent. Whereas a lot of communities can offer transportation, helping you to be more independent and less reliable on your family and others. Healthy meals, opportunities to stay active, focus on your health, and to still celebrate holidays and have entertainment. So these are some of the things that are positives about how the change could benefit you. But nonetheless, human nature is to cling to the familiar, because even when a change is for the better, it's still a difficult choice. Okay, it's still difficult for people. We still want to hang on to the familiar. And I love this little guy.
Yeah.
She feels, she knows she might have to do something, but there's still fear involved. And so sometimes when seniors relocate, there is a syndrome, which you alluded to, Audrey, that's called relocation stress syndrome. And it doesn't affect everyone, but it's basically a set of physiological, behavioral, and emotional responses that are triggered by a major change in a senior's environment. And I might draw a parallel to any kind of life quake that you're going through. You experience physiological, behavior, and emotional responses to that. In the case of RSS, it most commonly occurs when an older adult transitions from a long-time home into an assisted living facility or even independent living or memory care unit. It's a normal reaction to a big life change. So it is a thing. It's not an illness. It's just a normal reaction to a big life change. And it does not mean that something is wrong. It doesn't mean that you made a bad decision. It's temporary, and support can help, and a mind shift can also help. These are some of the signs of it. You have trouble sleeping, anxiety or restlessness, your appetite changes, you have mood changes, feeling tired. Maybe all you want to do is just go to sleep. You're wanting to withdraw, or you have difficulty focusing. So you must remind yourself, and if you are supporting someone else going through this or a family member, that these feelings usually improve with time. These are some of this is what RSS can look like. It has many faces. And we see this every time, all the time in our work. And so we're very aware of it. We're very compassionate. So if you, as we said before, if you do experience it, and not everyone does, but if someone does, just know that it's a normal response to change. And with time, support, and self-care, those feelings usually improve. And then here are some steps that can help you manage it. Getting involved, joining an activity or club, strengthening your relationship with neighbors, participating in events, developing new routines. Whenever you're hit with a life change, there's something drastic that usually jolts you out of your old routine, so you have to develop new routines. Self-care and joy, engaging in music, storytelling, or gentle exercise. Staying active is important. And maybe by trying just one small new activity and spending time in nature or with pets. Very important, right, Audrey?
I
Pets
can't
are great
imagine
healers.
life without them. As many of the people on today, they get that too. Yeah.
Yes, it's a lovely thing. Nature and pets. Spiritual practices, whatever spiritual beliefs you have, to honor those, being kind to yourself, and getting the proper support if needed. So just breaking these down a little bit. Am I going okay, Marlene? Is this better pace?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Oh, good. You're welcome. So understanding and acknowledging your emotions are very important. Communicating openly and honestly about your feelings with someone that you trust. If it's not a family member, perhaps a professional. It's really important that you communicate, because the real important thing, the takeaway there, is that it gives people an opportunity to help you. And sometimes, in the case of fears and expectations, it it can allow an opportunity for certainly an atmosphere of understanding and support, but also maybe you'll be given some information that will help allay your fears, that might replace any misconceptions that you might have, so that your fears can be alleviated if they are irrational ones, rather than emotional, because emotions are certainly something that you can't always control. But in the case of going to communities, some of our seniors think that they're going to lose the ability to play games, or can't go see their hairdresser, or other little things that enhance their life, that they feel are going to be a loss. In the case again of moving, I won't spend a lot of time, but planning and organizing ahead of time. If you are relocating, it's so crucial. It just significantly reduces stress during the relocation process. I can't say enough about proper planning and organization, because the overwhelming feeling that a lot of people feel is that they just don't have enough time and they have to make quick decisions. And that's the worst thing you can do when you are moving even at a younger age. It's good to plan and organize the help that you need for yourself to make it all happen. And everything is to be gained when you go slow. It doesn't speed up the process, but it slows it down in the best possible way so you can make good, thoughtful decisions about where you want your belongings to go, what you're going to be taking with you, what you're going to donate, what you're going to sell. It just allows you some valuable time. I always encourage people, if they go away with one thing from my downsizing presentation, it's don't wait until there's a crisis. Don't wait until there's a life quake when you have to do it under duress, under stress. It's the worst possible time. So, but that's another presentation. Seek professional assistance if needed. Know your limitations. This, of course, is one of our trucks. Let me give a little shameless plug to Amston. We are professional movers. We can help you create a checklist of tasks and deadlines, all the tasks that you need to do. Or, of course, you can do these yourself. So the point is that breaking down the process into manageable steps will help reduce stress and help you to feel more focused and more in control. Just one more thing about that, considering enlisting the help of professionals. If you do know a senior, you are a senior feeling overwhelmed, professional movers can really help you handle the logistics of the move efficiently, and that will save you time and physical exertion, giving you peace of mind. That's one less thing that you have to worry about. A lot of times when we move seniors, their health concerns that they have to deal with, their financial concerns. And so this is just one less thing that they have to worry about, which is a huge part. By saying one less thing, it's really a huge part of their stress. And then, of course, embracing the new community. And by community, this could be, again, applying it to your personal situation as you have organized yourself around a common thing that you all have, Audrey. You have surrounded yourself with folks that understand your process and your concerns. In going to a new community, as far as building construction means, you want to embrace the community, as it does present an opportunity to form new connections, right? And engage in a vibrant community of folks that are in your similar situation. So it can foster a feeling of belonging, a sense of belonging, and alleviate feelings of isolation. So at some point, embracing the change as opposed to resisting it is part of this process. I love this slide. So you want to get acquainted with the amenities and services offered with your senior living community and the surrounding towns. If you're relocating, okay, they may include senior and community centers, public libraries, town greens, parks, local restaurants, all the things that are new and can be exciting, things that you may not have in your direct community right now. Places of worship. And of course, we mentioned the importance of routine, and it's often necessary to establish a new routine. It's very important that routines provide stability and familiarity, especially during that initial adjustment period. Create a schedule that includes activities you enjoy, self-care routines, and social engagements. It's helpful to create a schedule for yourself so you can incorporate all the things that are important to your well-being. It can help alleviate anxiety and give you purpose, a new purpose in your new living environment or in your new life. Staying active and engaged is important, and taking the initiative. At some point, we are responsible for our own future, right? And taking the initiative to attend social events, to join clubs or groups that interest you that you might not have had time for before in your previous lifestyle. Participating in activities. Try one new thing this week. Introduce yourself to a neighbor, join an activity, or just reflect on what brings you joy. Most importantly, what do you most enjoy doing? Many times life just kind of happens to us. We go along and we're just carried along without reflecting ever on what is it that brings me happiness. Audrey, which is what you are all about, right? Asking people to consider that is so important. I love this new activity, something you never thought you could do or would do, but now you might have time for it. And to seek that out and to try it out, even if you don't think you would like it. And of course, we mentioned practice self-care, physically and emotional well-being, all the things that you know nourish your soul. And we mentioned some of them: time spent with pets, time in nature, walks, spiritual and faith-based practices, chair yoga, eating well, sleeping well, and seeking the support you need. Love this picture. There's nothing like the joyful company of a pet. So, walking in purposeful movement, pursuing hobbies, engaging in intellectually stimulating activities. I think I'm being redundant now and stressing this, but these are all the things that make us well-rounded and that, as I said, really nurture our soul and give us purpose in life. Physical activities. And then most of all, giving yourself time to adjust. Okay, it's a normal part of the transition period, and to be patient with yourself. So life transitions are significant, and it's completely normal to experience a range of emotions. And acknowledging and understanding those emotions are the first step in managing them effectively. Giving yourself permission to feel and processing your emotions, whether it's excitement, anxiety, or even sadness, is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Give yourself permission to feel and embrace the journey. And remember that it takes time. It just takes time to acclimate to a new environment or a new reality in yourself, and celebrate the small victories. Compliment yourself for taking small steps and moving in the right direction. Transitions are essential to life. They're not going away. The key to benefiting from them is not to turn away, right? The disruptors, the twists and turns, and the life quakes, they're pivotal moments in our lives. They're invitations to reshape our lives and to take the next step in our story. Bruce Feiler says transformation begins when we honor the fear of change and gently shift the focus to new possibilities. And new possibilities. Oh, I just kind of lost my place. Uh, oh, sorry. I'm glad you're going to be editing this. New possibilities, comfort, and ease of living, right? Okay, and to be open to humor, very important. Surround yourself with positive people, practice positive self-talk by being gentle and encouraging with yourself, and affirm that you are worthy and that all is well. I think that's an important line. Affirm that you are worthy and that all is well. Above all, keep a positive mindset and embrace the power of optimism. Surround yourself with optimistic people and with humor. Fun fact, many who feared change found new joys that they never expected. We hear this all the time from our clients that we move. They say, oh, I should have done this a long time ago. Once you get on that other side and you see the beautiful butterfly that your life has become, that it's a whole new experience. It really is moving forward to live. I'll just read this final quote from Bruce. Some disruptors can turn into life quakes, which are messy, massive, messy, and often miserable. They come at inconvenient times that usually make them even more inconvenient, but they also do something else. They initiate a period of self-reflection and personal reevaluation. They make it, sorry, one second. Oops, gosh. They make it possible to reinvent our very identity. And they force the question, what is it that gives my life meaning? And how does that influence the story of my life? If we all look at the story of our life the one that we had initially, maybe when we were starting out, how have these disruptions and life quakes influenced the direction of our life now? Because it will just keep on going. Joy, beauty. So at Amston, we know how to move seniors forward, and we know the transition does not end when the furniture is delivered. So that's our company. We guide your move so we can focus on the next step in your life story. So so I'm sorry we kind of went a little bit over. I wanted to leave more time for questions. I welcome any comments or questions that anybody has.
First, let me say thank you because your presentation is applicable to anyone, no matter how old you are. There are people of all ages that have to go through the transitions with an early move, a new job, just where we are always going to be redirected. And Bernie Siegel has taught me that when we are being redirected, trust something good will come of it. So
Absolutely.
I want to just thank you. So I'm going to open it up for questions. Anybody have questions?
So I'm actually wondering, in your personal experience, because it sounds like you've been doing this, as an expert for a while, what are the characteristics that you see kind of anecdotally that help people navigate transitions? And again, not just, moving. Again, this is, our population that we're dealing with here are all folks that have experienced cancer, which is a huge transition. It's something we talk about a lot, kind of the before cancer version of themselves and the after cancer version of themselves. So, that is a huge transition. And along with that come many other transitions in terms of, abilities, physical appearance, uh, side effects, to navigate that type of thing. So what would you say kind of some of the common denominators you've seen about how people can navigate transitions as successfully as possible?
Right. Well, in our business, actually, the list of things that I went through are very helpful. And I usually hand out a list of things to help mitigate relocation stress syndrome. One of the biggest things that I've learned, I think, is that it just takes time and that transformation does come from within. Sometimes there are situations outside of ourselves, things that happen that change our perception to help bring that about. I'll give you just one quick example. I had a client who we worked with for a year in helping her to get ready for the move, and she really was resisting the move. And she was living alone. She had very bad scoliosis in her spine. She had a series of different staircases leading up to her bedroom, and she really struggled, but she still hung on to that family home. Her husband was deceased. She had raised her son in that home, and she just did not want to go. Her son was in California. She had, nobody here, and she did have a life partner who lived with her part of the year. That's a whole nother story. But at any rate, bottom line is that eventually her husband took an apartment for her at a senior community and was insisting that she go there. And so we worked with her for months to downsize her. And then we moved her, and we did a beautiful floor plan, and all of her furniture that she wanted to take, it fit beautifully into this apartment. And we were very pleased and happy with ourselves about how it looked. And the day that, we moved her in and everything was in place, her partner came over and to look at it, and I was very happy. I'm like, yeah, tell her it's all finished. I'd love her to come see it. And he said, she's lying on her bed, she's crying, she does not want to leave. She's very, very upset. And of course, I was a little disappointed because I was so happy with the way it turned out, and I just knew she would love it. And so he came by himself, and he walked in and he said, wow, this really does look beautiful. He goes, I'm going to go get her. So he went home and got her, brought her over, kicking and screaming kind of. And she walked in and she says, wow, this really looks very nice. It really does look like my home. So I'm thinking, oh, wonderful, mission accomplished. She stayed, she moved in, and then she put her house on the market to sell. And I was in touch with her, and then she got an offer on the home. And I called her. I said, I heard you got an offer. How exciting. You must be very happy. And she said, no, I'm not. She said, I'm very sad. She goes, I don't think I did the right thing. I should have stayed there. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And I realized just because I was happy was not what she was experiencing. So then I said, oh, I understand. It's a loss. It will take time. And so then I got in touch with her a few weeks later, and I'm like, how are you doing, Paula? And she said, she says, I'm fine, I'm good. She goes, I went to the closing and I met the couple who were moving into the house, and they have a 10-year-old son who is the same age as my son, Nick, when we moved in the house. And she said, and I'm so happy that they will be there to enjoy it. And so she had this complete shift. And then I realized, oh, okay, now the transformation has occurred. She's very happy where she is, and her home is going to be sold. The son is happy. So I'm sorry, that wasn't a short story, but it just shows that the process continues. It's not just, when I think the job is done or anybody else, it has to come from her. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but sometimes the best thing you can do to help someone through is just to be understanding and to offer some things that may help. But it's really just about timing, and know that it's temporary. And these stories happen over and over again in our business. And in the end, people almost always come to us and say, oh, that was pretty, that was rough, but you all made it so much easier. And I wish I would have done this a long time ago. So, but it is a process. We resist even when change could be for the better.
It is just that, a process. And when, like I said, when we're being directed, trust that something good will come. It may not happen initially, may not happen for a while, but it does happen because we learn a lot about ourselves, and it does take time. And it goes along with that word healing with ing. It's an ongoing process. It's ongoing. Healing, transforming, it's ongoing, and it takes time. Thank you,
Yes, it does.
Sheila. This was wonderful.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Anybody else have any
everyone.
questions? No. Okay.
Thank you so much. I think the thing that's so interesting, and when Audrey kind of proposed this topic, is how applicable it is to everyone. And the idea that this big transition, whether it's a senior being relocated, or again, any stage of life, and any so much of your lessons really are applicable to anything going on that cause a shift. The thing that stuck out to me the most is the difference between the transition and the transformation. And I really like that delineation. I've never heard it before, the way a transition is something that happens externally, but a transformation is something that happens internally. And it reminds me, we quote another one of Audrey's wonderful speakers, Margie Shapiro, who talks about hope being, an action and a verb. And the idea that transformation almost sounds like a choice, that's the way you react to the transition. I think
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
a really empowering message. And to me, that was the main takeaway. And I think that's really, really applicable to our community, especially to those who are dealing, with something, a life quake like a cancer diagnosis, so.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for that. I'm glad that that came through, because the transition is not something we can always control. Those involuntary transitions, the only thing we can control then is our reaction to them, and therein lies that transformation.
That's right. Yes. So a few people in the chat were thanking you very much. Karen, Damari, thank you for this presentation. And Marlene had loved your life quake. It's perfect term, and loves it. And the flower that came out of the concrete, it resembles the famous classic ad from decades ago. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, no, this is great.
You are welcome. And yeah, Marlene, one thing we don't want to have happen is let disruptors turn into life quakes, right? When there are smaller disruptors, if we can see them as such and deal with them then they don't have to be clustered with more disruptors or turn into a life quake. But I love that term too. I think it's thank you for the heart. Back at you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Janet.
everybody. Thank you, Audrey. Thank you, Sheila. Have a great day,
Thank
everybody.
you, Joan. Thank you, everybody. Listen,
Yes.
kicking and screaming internally. I love it, Joan. I love that. Did you see what Joan wrote?
Picking and screaming internally.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we all go through that, and it's okay. Acknowledge that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's and sometimes just acknowledging doesn't change it. We have to accept it and to try to still move forward in baby steps.
That's right.
Thank you for sharing that, and I wish you all good health and peace and joy and happiness.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.